First of all, influenza is a respiratory infection, as we all know. It is caused by 3 types of viruses, A, B, and C. A and B being the most common, of course, and of course influenza A is also the most virulent. As you can imagine, the previous viral infections that we had were various types of influenza A. Okay. So there are currently viruses that are circulating within the human population. Influenza A categorized or typed as H3N2, H1N1, which we'll go over extensively, and the B strains. Type A virus is is the most virulent and the cause of the majority of the respiratory infections. And all known pandemics were caused by influenza A. Okay. This is a diagram of what the influenza virus looks like. And I just wanted to briefly describe to you how we got the terminology H and N. And it has to do with the hemagglutinin and the neuraminidase receptors on this virus particle here. There are a total of 16 hemagglutinin receptors, and there is a total of 10 neuraminidase receptors. And basically antigen H, in short, what it does is that it initiates infection following attachment of the virus to the susceptible respiratory cells. What this typically means is that the various type of H, whether it's H1, H3, H5, will allow us to, will somehow dictate the virus to infect the types of animal species. So H5, originally infected birds and etc. And then the antigen N, or neuraminidase, is responsible for the release of the virus from the infected cell. Okay, and then antigenic changes are less found in those types of B and C. And of course, the C type appears to be stable. It's not very common as compared to type A and B. Okay, there are various reservoirs for the virus, and as we know, the major reservoirs include a variety of birds and animals, pigs, dogs, horses, cats, and domestic poultry. Animal reservoirs provide new strains by recombination between the influenza viruses of men as well. Okay, this is a brief history of the various influenza pandemics that occurred globally. In 1918, there was a Spanish flu that had taken more than 20 lives. And then in 1957, we had H2N2. It's considered the Asian flu, and there were more than 2 million deaths. In 1968, the Hong Kong flu, of course, it was type H3N2, also caused more than 2 million deaths. And there was an antigenic shift only in the H antigen. But simply put, it did cause a high mortality rate there. And then recently, in 2003, the avian influenza, or known as the bird flu, categorized or typed as H5N1, was the first human case that was found in 1997. But of course, it didn't reach ginormic proportions until 2003. And of course, this was human-to-human transmission. Of course, it was relatively inefficient and not sustained, and it eventually resolved.
I have a question.
Yes.
You've got H1N1 in 1918. Same virus? Yes. No swine?
No.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's why, based on the criteria for those receiving vaccinations, those who are 65 and older, well, of course, 1918, if they live to be that long, yeah, but they don't need to be vaccinated because it's assumed that they have the immunity towards that. Okay, so how is H1N1 different from the regular influenza viruses? It's also known as the swine flu because, again, it started there. It is different from other usual flu viruses because it exhibits the ability to infect the cells deep within the respiratory system, where it can cause pneumonia and in severe cases death, as we all know. Of course, seasonal viruses typically infect only cells in the upper respiratory system, whereas H1N1 goes down deep-seated, further down. Okay. H1N1 2009 is a new strain of type A. It has previously not been detected in swine or humans, and there is an unusual mixture of genetic segments including swine, avian, and human influenza viruses. And of course, we projected that it originated in pigs at some point of time and eventually transmitted probably when they're feeding the pigs, or actually maybe in those houses where they were, what do you call them, swine houses? Or slaughterhouses, excuse me. But I want to just illustrate to you that H1N1 is a global pandemic, and it occurs almost everywhere from the northern continent to, Asia, to the African continent and South America as well. And so it is not a localized, it is not a national pandemic, but a global pandemic. Okay, now we're going to narrow down to the US here. And what I want to show here, this is based from the CDC.